Kia ora and welcome to Mana Talanoa. I'm Andre Whitaker, and in this series we're looking at Wahine Toa Women in sport, and it's my pleasure to welcome to Mana Talanoa Women in Sport someone who has over a 20-year history career in playing rugby and rugby league, and also is a dual international in both codes. So welcome, kia ora, Honey Hireme Smiler.
Kia ora, Andre. Lovely to be a part of the Mana Talanoa podcast this morning, and yeah, just thanks for this opportunity.
No, great to talk to you. And look, there's a lot of stuff in your extensive career that we can touch on in this session. But let's start off going back to your heritage, your whakapapa, and where you're from, and maybe a bit about your iwi links back home.
Yeah, ka pai. So born and raised in Putararu, which is a small town in the South Waikato. It sits in between Tiro and Tokoro, because everyone always asks, where's Putararu? So I always refer them to Tokoro and say, well, we're before that kind of thing. But yeah, grew up here. My iwi links through Waikato Tainui, also Te Arawa, through my nanny. Ngāti Raukawa obviously being the area that I grew up in, and probably the most common iwi that I refer to. Both mum and dad from this region as well. So yeah, very, very proud to be from my little small hometown and to be brought up here. Yeah.
And you're back in town now, like you're currently based back in Putararu. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm living in Hamilton, but today I'm actually back in Putararu. So this is I'm here for a rugby game. I'm playing for the local Putararu rugby women's side. And funny enough, we're coming up to the sort of middle of our season, and this is my debut for my own hometown this season, in fact, because they did have a women's rugby team years ago, and I was only about 12 or 13 then, and then they've only just kind of sparked up the team in probably the last 3 years, but I've been living in Hamilton and sort of player coaching up there, one of the other teams. But I did promise, you know, all my cousins who I'm running around with now in the team that I would come back and play for Putararu. So yeah, I made my debut about 3 or 4 weeks ago for the Putararu women's rugby team. Loving it. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Well, that's lovely, and it's great to. We always like to go back and help our community. You know, where we started, but in fact, that's where it did start for you way back. I understand there's a 5-year-old, but in rugby league for the Putururu Dragons. So it'd be awesome to talk us through, you know, putting on your football boots as a young girl, young wahine, and you know, making your first running out onto the field as a young person. What was it like back then playing rugby as a young person?
Yeah, I mean, I started alongside my brothers. So, you know, being from a small community, everyone kind of played sport, and was actually initially my brothers that got into it. And I really wanted to play, but my dad was real hesitant, and he was like, oh, no, I'm not too sure. Anyway, I went out and had my first game and just fell in love almost instantly, I think, with rugby league. I loved the contact. It didn't really faze me that I was kind of the only girl in the team. And I had a couple of other girls in the team as I kind of went through the under 5 schoolboys and the under 7s. But as obviously I went through all the way to the under 14 schoolboys teams. But as I sort of got older, all the girls started to drop off. So kind of from, I suppose, under 10s up, I was maybe the only girl in the team. But it never bothered me. I loved it. I loved I suppose the competitiveness of it, and also I think I used to thrive off probably gaining the respect of my teammates. You know, I would probably gauge that off being in the boys' team, and you know how they get to captain say, oh, you know, you pick your team, and if they, you know, the boys would be the captains, and then they'd be like, oh, we pick Honey. You know, so we're like, oh, cool, you know. So it kind of gave me an indication, look, you know, they're picking me on merit that I'm a good player, and sort of not picking me just because I'm a girl. They actually wanted me in their team. So, yeah, I credit a lot of my career back to playing alongside the boys all those years, because I think it just it helped enhance, you know, my skill level, and definitely toughened me up, that's for sure.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned being around your brothers and the boys. So was there a lot of that sort of backyard tackling practice that went on back home with your brothers? And I guess they didn't go easy on you either.
No, absolutely not. They all try to get on my team. So my mum is actually one of 11 children. So, and all us cousins, we all kind of grew up together, and we all, you know, pretty much migrated around my grandparents' house. So that was pretty much the go-to game, was bull rush. You know, we all grew up playing bull rush, so we'd all get together at our grandparents and played bull rush. And yeah, that was me. I was in my element. I couldn't find anything better but to smash my cousins and stuff. And yeah, I got a fair few smashings too. So they never went easy on me, which is I think in hindsight a good thing. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something there about being around all the whānau, you know, always lots of cousins around, being at your nannies. That whānau background and growing up amongst that, how important do you think that is to the, developing you now into being a team player and being part of sport?
Yeah, look, it was huge for me because, you know, they were always my sounding board. They always, you know, they were brutally honest, but in a loving way. You know, they'd tell me when, you know, either I wasn't playing so well, or maybe I was being, you know, a bit over the top on the field because I was so competitive. Sometimes I'd lose my cool and stuff, and they'd be like, hey, you know, just calm down. That was, you know, from my cousins, my brothers, through to my aunties, uncles, parents, and grandparents. You know, my grandfather was always like, hey, you know, don't get too big for your boots, kind of thing. So it was always good. They were smart, you know, they kept me grounded, I think. And so, you know, right through from when I was little all the way through to my career now, they've always been probably what I call my potoko manawa, my backbone. And I've always, you know, been able to lean on them in the good times, but especially in the bad times as well.
Yeah, great, fantastic. And I think for a lot of, as we talk about Māori Pasifika, actually all sports people having that whānau that you can lean on, that you can go back to, I think is very important for anything, but in particular in sport. But as you're saying, they selected you to be captain way back in the day amongst the boys, and that leadership shone through. So, you know, you started developing into making representative teams and, you know, right at the other end of it to the World Cup. So let's talk about progressing into playing senior rugby league, making the representative sides. Yeah, talk us through that journey and getting through to, you know, eventually being picked for the Kiwi Ferns to go to the Rugby League World Cup.
Yeah, I suppose the progression for me was, I suppose, in some sense, smooth sailing. You know, I got picked up pretty early in school. In fact, when I was 14, I couldn't play in the boys' teams anymore, so I went straight into women's, because back then they didn't really have the rules. And I was fairly big back then too, so I could kind of get away with it. I think there was a couple of times where I told people I was 16 or 17, knowing I was only 14. So again, I progressed because I always felt if I played at a higher level or alongside people, you know, some of these women who were, you know, in their 20s and 30s, and I could almost, you know, just for me, it was always getting around them and seeing how much knowledge and that I could, you know, drain out of them. And I was always that one, like, just there, just constantly there. I probably wasn't the best learner. I would say I sort of had a little bit of cockiness about me. And I think I identified pretty early that I had a fair bit of talent. I think my biggest issue with it was that I probably didn't work as hard as what I should have. And I didn't figure that out till quite late in my career, to be honest. I relied on that, you know, they talk about that natural talent thing. I relied on that a lot, quite heavily, you know, through my teens and through my 20s. And yeah, and then I sort of, well, I got a few wake-up calls along the way, but probably what I know now, I wish I knew at 20 years old, you know. But I mean, that's all part of learning and growing. And you talk about leadership. I think for me, I'm the oldest of my brothers as well, so I was probably thrived into a leadership role at even just a young age like that. I grew up babysitting all my younger cousins and things like that. And I think especially in a small town like this, for me, in order to, I suppose, thrive in what I wanted to do, I had to be the leader, you know, because I knew that what I wanted to do, and in order to do that, no one else is gonna pull me along. So I had to step up and lead that. And even just things like, you know, I started a schoolgirls rugby team back down here in Pataruru because I wanted to play schoolgirls rugby. That's actually how I got into rugby, because after league, you know, I had to go cross over to schoolgirls rugby. we didn't have a team there. So the first year I had to go play for Tukaro High, and that was kind of like our rivals, but they had a team. So I went and played for them. And the next year I was like, right, I'm not playing for them. We're going to start up our own team. So, you know, I was just constantly in the teachers there, like, come on, we need to do this, and hassling all my mates who all played touch and all of that. So we kicked off a team, you know. So it's just those kind of little things, and you reflect back and think, you know, there's always little moments in your life where you think, oh, you showed some leadership there and stuff, and yeah, then it kind of evolves.
That's certainly come through, and if we look at some of the stats that you've produced over time, and you've got a lot of longevity in the sport, so you're still playing now, and it's only, if I could say, it's probably over 20 years that you've been in there. But you mentioned earlier that it took a little while into your late teens for you to pick up on some of the things that you wish you knew earlier. What would be some of those things? If you were talking to a young person now, and you were the young Honey, what were some of those things you realised a bit later on that young people need to understand about being a leader, being a competitive sports person?
Yeah, I suppose one of the key things that I learned is natural talent will only get you so far, right? So you need to put in some effort and, you know, have really good resilience and work ethic to get you further than that, okay? Because I think not many of us really play to our absolute potential. We sort of play to where we think we can go, but in fact, if we push past that, we can pretty much open up so many doors and so many avenues, and not only that, open up our own minds to how far we can actually go. And if we got that far, we could probably go further. So it's just resilience, I think, is really important, because I think a lot of young athletes, you know, they come across some speed bumps or some disappointment within their sport around maybe injury or non-selection and all of those kind of things that happen in the realm of sport. And they get into a mindset where, like, oh, you know, they need to see that there's two options there. They need to see, well, I can accept that and you know, hang up the boots or give up, or I can push past it and see where else I can go. What are the other opportunities? And really check in. Like, I think for me, it's been checking in. Why do I keep doing what I do? You know, and for me, I thought it always falls back about I'm in love with playing the sport that I play. And once I'm not in love with it, you know, I'll do something else probably within the sport, because I think I'll always love the sport, but I might not necessarily, especially now, be in love with being the one out on the field necessarily. There's other things that I can do. But in saying that, you know, every time I run out on the field, I know it's that whole fire in your belly thing. You know, I know that I can still feel that. I still love being out there. I still love bending and running in tries and all of that stuff. That's what keeps me, you know, that's what ignites me. So that's what keeps me in the game. So it's always checking back with, you know, they say check, what's your why, you know, and you have to know that. And it gives you genuine purpose to know what you want to do. So I think that's been a real key for me.
Yeah, fabulous. And I think for young people, knowing that, if they can figure that out earlier, that's going to help them enjoy a long career. So for you, you know, you 2017, you were the highest try scorer in the Rugby League World Cup. And then, you know,
and I think I was the oldest at the Rugby League World Cup.
So, you know, it shows that developing the resilience, and you talk about the training that keeps you in there. But you then moved into rugby. What was the motivation? You know, you're high performing at rugby league and earlier on in the World Cup, and then what took you on the journey to the rugby sevens and then being part of the Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, I think more recently, you know, the rugby seven stuff is a lot more recognised, and I was part of the Go for Gold stuff that you know, that came about because they were going to put rugby sevens into the Olympics and stuff. But if we actually take it back probably 10 years prior to that, we were actually playing sevens for ages before that. So we travelled the world with the Aotearoa Māori team, and a couple of coaches from Rotorua, they were pretty much funding it or getting in sponsorship for us. And so we were representing Māoris. We went to Hong Kong, we went to Rome, we went all over the world, Rarotonga, but, you know, no one knew about us. So the sevens had been around for a long time, and there was, you know, all sorts of the Black Ferns girls were all part of that makeup and playing in those teams. It's just when they, you know, announced this Go for Gold in this Olympics thing, then the public started to know what was going on. And so for me, it was a natural progression into sevens, the opportunity at Olympic medal. yeah, that was enough to say, oh, yep, I haven't done that yet. You know, I'd done leg, I'd done 15s, and I really love sevens. I thought always felt it was my type of game. You know, I love the big runs and the space that it gave me to move and run. So so I jumped into that straight away, and was lucky enough to pick up one of the first contracts with the I think back in 2012 or 13. I think we won that World Cup, and then we got contracted. So yeah, that was amazing.
Be good to come back and talk about that contract. Then I just want to touch on, you mentioned the Maori Rugby team that you're in, the women's Maori Rugby team. It's interesting. You see the Pasifika teams, you know, Tonga, Samoa, Cooks, and the Maori teams, and they seem to really bring out the best in our people when we're together and playing. And I think it deserves more recognition. Look at that. You know, your team was running around and doing all those things, and no one was really giving it the attention that it needed. What was it like being in that Wahine Māori team? What did that mean to you?
Oh, look, it was empowering, to be honest. You know, I was still one of the young ones back then, and we had amazing leadership group. A couple of the local girls who I grew up playing with here, they were part of that team, and they were sort of the ones that pulled me through. And we'd head over to Rotorua for trainings. But yeah, it was just empowering to be in and amongst, you know, Māori. You know, we did haka, we did, you know, all of those kind of things, that whanaungatanga stuff that brought us together, and then that would naturally flow onto the field, you know. So we just knew it was like that uncanny. We didn't even have to say, hey, give me that backflip pass. We knew they were going to be there. We just threw it, you know. It was that real raw flair and talent that used to come out, and that was awesome. And, you know, it wasn't recognised often, but neither was many female sports. I think there were one year we won the Hong Kong Sevens like 3 years in a row, and the only time we actually really got acknowledged for it was when Jonah Lomu, he came and presented us with our medals, and then there was all these photos taken with us and Jonah Lomu, and they're like, oh, cool, this team won the Hong Kong Sevens. Like, mate, this is our 3rd year we've won it. You know, so it took for a male figure to come and get photos with us for there to be any kind of recognition. But again, like, I always think back to that stuff, and we never played for recognition. We played because we loved it. So that was bottom line for us.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff you're talking about in terms of, we could call it recognition. Like you said, it took Jonah to come along, and then you know, then the media and people want to turn up. But what's the importance of strong leadership shown from Wahine through sport that you've experienced? What do you see as the importance of strong Wahine leadership to up and coming rangatahi that are coming through?
Yeah, I think it's just nurturing our young ones through, because I think when I think back then, we just accepted it. You know, we just accepted it, and we did it for the love of the game, and that was all good, because then we still had to go back to our full-time jobs and, you know, the kids and all of that stuff. But now I think leadership has maybe turned around a little bit, where we want to be more empowering and getting these young kōrero, these young wahine to actually speak up and not just accept it, you know, and even be confident in telling their story, because those stories are going to inspire others, and then it just assists in growing the game. I think that's probably the key to it now. Like, let's not just sit in the background anymore. Let's actually stand up for ourselves. Let's speak up, be bold, you know, and just be brave, be courageous to tell our stories. Yeah,
well, you've certainly been recognised for that courageousness and boldness, and this year in the New Year's Honours list with the member of New Zealand Order of Merit. So, you know, congratulations on that. So what, you know, that's what a hallmark to achieve. So along with that, life for you now, what are the kinds of things that you're involved with? I understand you obviously still doing some work with TV or Sky Sport, and involved with Halberg and the disability sport sector. Tell us about the sort of stuff you're doing there.
Yeah, I suppose I'm a little bit in a transition mode. You know, I'm getting close to 40 now. I'm not far off 40. And the original plan for me, I always like to set you know, annual goals kind of thing, or even, you know, longer than that. And so 2 years ago, I was set on, actually, I came off the field in 2017 Rugby League World Cup, and I was disappointed. You know, we lost to Aussie in those closing minutes. And so I was like, right, I want to go back. You know, I want to go again. And I was like, okay, 2021, you're going to be 40 years old. Can you do this? So I just said it. Yep, I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to go for it. And then obviously now it's next year and we've had COVID and the body's definitely slowing down. I can definitely feel that, and I'm honest about it, you know. So for me, it's probably looking at avenues to keep playing while I can, and just, you know, and I'm taking it day by day, week by week, see how the body pulls up. I'll be the first to pull myself out if I don't reach a standard of performance that I want to be at. But it's also then looking at these other avenues. So lucky enough to be working along Sky Sport, and when they approached me about that opportunity, really nervous, you know, not used to sort of being in the camera and the one speaking, I'm just the one playing. But for me, it was an opportunity to be able to promote female sports, you know, to be able to put it out there. So I took it both hands, and still learning, but enjoying it though. You know, it's when you make mistakes on camera, it's just like making mistakes on the field. You know, you just get on with it, sort of thing. So I still see myself as a rookie in that area, but also the role within Halberg. I've worked in the disability space for close on 10 years now. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's also so my role within Halberg is to support young people with physical and visual disabilities or impairments, to help them engage and participate in sport and or recreation. And I love it, you know, to see the smile on these kids' faces when they ride a bike for the first time, or when they get to play wheelchair basketball, or whatever sport it is, or recreation as well that they might want to do. That, you know, that just, again, it ignites that fire in my belly. So I love that sort of stuff. And and it keeps me grounded too, you know, because some of these kids, they face on a daily, from the moment they wake up every morning, they face some massive challenges, but, you know, they still get up, smile on their face, and they still want to give it a go. You know, it's that real grassroots stuff that helps me keep me grounded too. And I don't know, it's just another way in which I can serve others. I don't actually see it as work, to be honest. I think I've got a sweet job, because I don't actually feel like I'm working. You know, I get to hang out with these cool ass kids and go into schools and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Oh, it's fabulous to be involved with all that inclusivity of you know, giving people opportunities to be part of, particularly in sport. Sometimes sport can be seen as quite an exclusive arena, and in some parts it is. You know, you need to make that top level, and not many make it there. But actually, it's there for everyone. There's a role for everyone in sport, and also through different disability and ability types as well. So awesome to hear that you're doing that, and you're about to head out for the local rugby team this afternoon, eh?
Yep, can't wait. I get to play alongside all my little cousins, you know, some nieces in there as well. So I just love it. It's sort of probably taken me back to grassroots stuff, and just to connect with the community again. I've played a lot of my career overseas, so when I get to play down here in Patariri, see like all my aunties and uncles and all the cousins on the sideline again, it's like, oh wow, I feel like I'm 8 years old again, running around for the Patariri Dragons. So it's awesome. I'm really, really loving it.
Well, it's great to have that ihi and excitement, you know, going on. And I'm sure the aunties and uncles will they'll cheer you, but they'll let you know if you make a mistake as well. They need to, oh, you missed the tackle, or, you know. I think that's all part of the fun and being back in the community. Honey, it's been a pleasure talking to you in this series of Mana Talanoa, Wahine Toa Women in Sport. I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing stories about your family, your whakapapa, and really congratulate you on your career, but more particularly what you're doing now and giving back to your community. I think that's most important. So, ngā mihi nui ki a koe, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora.